Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, and I'm the Chief Sales Sergeant of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. And so every week for years now, we've been showing up with some really amazing people, folks that have been best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, folks that are on the front lines leading sales teams, making sure that those teams are removing hope from how they sell and how they serve. And at every one of our episodes, this is not just high level strategy. We're digging into the weeds and giving you solutions. Every single one of our shows, we build a system with our guests to address the problem, the place where they see so many business people and salespeople falling back on hope. And you'll be able to use that system as soon as you get off the line from this show, no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. Now, it's summertime here in the northern hemisphere of the United States when we're doing this recording. And that means that so many salespeople, so many buyers especially, are taking time off in the summer. They're out with their families, they're getting down to the tropics, they're enjoying themselves. And that's a beautiful thing. We work hard so that we can play hard. But here's a problem that happens in sales. Whether we are called away from our sales duties due to a vacation or family emergency or a variety of other things, so often we hope that we'll just be able to get back in the driver's seat, back in the saddle, and pick up right where we left off. Well, if you've ever logged out of your CRM and waited about a week and then logged back in and you see all those tasks stacked up on one another, you see all those emails that have come in, you got to go through that inbox through hundreds of emails sometimes to figure out which ones are worth responding to. That can get really stressful. So today's guest is going to walk us through a couple of great processes for how to make sure that we can systemize how we sell and how we serve, even if we are not present at our desks, even if we're out enjoying ourselves on vacation. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to the show a man who spent more than 5 months in the high Arctic. I'm really excited to hear about that story. Mr. Nelson de Miranda. Nelson, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Hey Sean, thanks so much. How you doing today?
Life is good, man. It's good. So obviously, you and I were chatting a little before the show. I've gotten to be in some interesting environments, but never the high Arctic. So excited to hear about that. But let's start with you, man. I want to know your background, your history. How did you get into business, into sales? Talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, it's a little bit of dumb luck. Went to college for geography. Did a lot of GIS mapping and sort of what you see in Google Maps. Got into the tech space quite a bit. Enjoyed it. Was doing a lot of technical marketing. Eventually grew into a consulting role, and really enjoyed sales. Was pretty good at it. I think a lot of us in this world, when we get into consulting and working with customers, we kind of find our niche and enjoyed it. And now I'm sort of running a technical sales team here at Method and helping small businesses grow every single day.
And I'm guessing your time with the GIS is how you ended up in the high Arctic.
It is, yeah. So I was actually studying snow melt and sort of, climate change up north and how it impacts sort of migration of animals, in particular polar bears. And so ended up going into the high Arctic where there's no humans except for, a couple birds and a few polar bears that come knock on your door when you're sleeping in camp.
Nice. Oh, that's funny, man. So, talk to us a little bit about what Method does. I'm curious to learn kind of how it serves salespeople, especially.
Yeah, so Method is a no-code platform that bolts onto QuickBooks and Xero, which are common accounting platforms for small businesses. And we offer a number of apps out of the box that really leverage that accounting information to do more. One of the examples is we offer a traditional CRM where you manage your customers, your leads, and interact with them. In addition to just their sales background, you can also go through their purchase history and start to derive lists and market to those individuals. But where we go above and beyond is we're able to create custom solutions specific for industries or specific for your business where you may not have a large budget or you may not be able to purchase an out of the box solution that is designed, let's say, for pool management or something like cabinet manufacturing. You're really hard pressed as a business to find a solution that solves those problems, and we enable those customers to build out custom apps that service their needs.
Nice, very nice. And so then, with the folks you get to deal with, a lot of small business owners, I'm in that boat myself. I run a small business. I'm curious where you see the lot of us falling back on hope more than they should, and all that we do, and all the people we're managing, and the schedules throughout the year. Where does hope come into play for you?
Yeah, when you're working with small teams, there's a lot of dependence on key individuals. I know
Mhm.
for me, for example, we have a relatively small sales team of 20 people or so. It might seem big, but it's relatively small. And I had a team member just this past week decide she's going to take a last minute trip to Japan. And so 28 days later, here we are at the end of September, but she still has her sales quotas. Our company still has our sales quotas. And so managing her workload and opening that up to other team members to support her while she's gone is really something unique that we do that I think other businesses struggle with. You know, as salespeople, we're never offline. We're always checking our email, always checking our phones, all of that. And when we do have individuals that want to disconnect, generally that means their quotas, you know, their success all falls behind. We're having to adjust or scramble. And so, yeah, it's definitely, especially in a scenario where you're going on vacation, just planning ahead and taking advantage of those opportunities while they're still there before other vendors step in or, you know, opportunities get lost for a variety of reasons.
So as a salesperson, a small business owner, when I'm getting ready for a vacation, like a lot of us do, I'm going through that massive mad dash to get all the things done, to get ahead of my call quota, to get ahead of my activity goals, so that those week or two that I'm gone, I don't fall so far behind that it's impossible to catch back up afterwards. But I'm guessing that there's a better way. So I'm curious to hear kind of what you've done to solve that for your salespeople and what you do for yourself. But as a salesperson, before you figured this out, what were some things that you saw happen or go wrong for yourself as a leader, maybe what your salespeople when they take off for a week or two? What are some of the things that, as maybe a beginning entrepreneur, I need to keep my eyes out for? What are the red flags that might happen before, during an absence from my CRM, from my call activity?
Yeah, yeah. So I came from a background of enterprise sales where they had this concept of team selling. You would generally have 4 or 5 people on a team focused on selling to one customer. When you're selling to larger organizations like the government or military or just other organized, I guess, industries, it's a little bit easier and you always have that catch-all. You know, when you move into the small business space or when you're an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have that parachute to fall back on or that pillow you can land on. And so really introducing the concept of team selling for smaller deals is super important. And that's something we've done. So we've taken 2 approaches to it. One, we've taken a quota approach where everyone has their own individual sales quota, but also assigning a team quota or just a team performance component of it. A lot of people aren't game for that, and that usually helps me identify maybe you're not the right person for our team, you
Right.
know? And it's kind of like a military thing, it's kind of a team thing, but you know, you need to depend on those who are around you. And unfortunately, sometimes the best performers aren't the best team players. And
Mhm.
so figuring out the right team dynamic is important there, but also making sure that those details, those notes are standardized across the board so anyone can pick up a sale. You know, I had a one scenario that really triggered for me was we had a big client that was on a sale. At the time I was doing primarily consulting sales and not necessarily direct customer sales. But this person had come back from their vacation and they're just like, I need everybody at this company who knows something about what we're doing to be on this call to sell to this client because we're already so deep in the red with them because of my vacation, because of our inability to follow up effectively. And so that really triggered my mind. It's just like, how do we avoid this situation
Mhm.
ever again where we're not hitting that emergency nuclear button constantly?
No, that's
You know?
brilliant. So you mentioned something there that we're going to build into the system in just a second. That we noticed in the military, just like we noticed in sales, if I see a problem and I do nothing to address it, I can count on that problem repeating itself and the results probably getting worse, especially the larger the opportunity that comes up. So we were fanatical about identifying the issues and putting something in place to either mitigate or eliminate that problem in the future. And for us, those look like systems, checklists, things that we knew we could pull off the shelf and use even in a stressful environment. And out of every new one we built, we could trim more hope away from our strategy. So here at Bulletproof Selling, when we're building these types of great sales systems, we use this acronym TRIM. And the T in TRIM is the trigger, just like you mentioned. So if I'm building a system for myself and my team, that if somebody has to step away from a deal, that we don't go in the red, What is the trigger for this? Does it happen when I get noticed that somebody is stepping away? Does it happen earlier? Does it happen when I'm structuring my team? What are what is the one moment that I need to really pull this off the shelf and begin using it so that I don't end up coming back to an office that is in disarray just because somebody stepped away from a deal?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I'd definitely start with structure. I think it
Mm,
starts with hiring the right people right off the top and helping them understand what you're doing and how you're positioning either your product or your service. And those individuals need to know that it's a combined effort, it's a team effort, and there's always going to be situations where you're going to have to fall back on one another, whether it's domain knowledge, industry knowledge, or just technical support. And so early on, if you identify that there is a person on the team who is not willing to sacrifice a little bit or work a little bit harder to support their teammates, to me that's the instant trigger that something needs to change,
yeah.
especially in a small team environment. And so acting on that is super important for me as a leader, and I think for the leaders around me as well.
Awesome. So then if my trigger is in the hiring process, that's a great one, by the way, or to assess my folks on the team now, who's willing to pick up the slack if one of their teammates has to step away for a moment. Now let's move into the R in trim, which is making this a repeatable process. So this is under the assumption that I've got a team under me that knows how to support one another and they're willing to. So let's start there. Now, what are the 4 or 5 steps that I should follow if I get noticed that somebody's going to Japan for a month and they didn't do a lot to prepare the team for this absence? What are the 4 or 5 things I can begin to implement off of a checklist to get myself and my team ready for that?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I do is I've definitely standardized the approach we take through each stage of the sales funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we have 4 clear steps of the sales funnel. We have that introductory step where we identify what is the job to be done or what is the main problem that customer is looking to solve through our application. How do they respond to our current product offering? What are the value adds we need to have? So what are those things we need to customize? And what is the output or what is the experience they expect at the end of that journey? And so we go through this checklist in our sales team really effectively, and we may have multiple people contributing to that checklist along the way. But because we've standardized it, it really enables anyone on our team to jump in and say, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Shane, who decided to go to Japan for a month, and we're really happy for him. He said that this was your next step. What are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to overcomplicate it. It's just a matter of what are the key, 4 or 5 things within that sales process or that buyer process that we really need to anchor into and make sure that our lead has confidence in our ability to get that to the finish line, whether we're there or not.
And so it sounds like then first step, standardize the approaches through your sales cycle so that at each stage it's a commonly shared language that everybody knows. In this stage, here are the things that have to be accomplished to advance it to the next one. And
You
then,
got it.
you'd mentioned someone else picking that up. So in my mind, that means having a next step in my CRM, in my, Rolodex, whatever system you're using to manage your pipeline movement, so that if I leave, somebody could log in or look at my next steps and say, all right, these were due this week. And because I know that this is the stage that this deal is in, I can pick up the phone and move this thing down the line, or at least get some activity done on this account. Those are great 2 steps. Is there anything else you'd recommend that we do or execute during someone's absence?
It's funny just hearing you give that voiceover because I think one of the fears we have as a sales team and as sales managers is the sharing of information.
Mm,
And a lot of sales organizations will go one of 2 ways. They're either really open with their information or they lock it down and keep everything a secret because they're scared of someone taking it away. And again, that falls back to our trigger point, which is make sure you're hiring the right people. And having a combined quota where everyone is contributing to that in some capacity is super important to ensure that everyone is sharing the same information. We know the same approach, and we can just pull from playbooks as needed whenever, this scenario comes up or that scenario comes up, and just have that prescribed element to support that sales cycle.
awesome. I love that. So then those are my repeatable steps, which are great to move a deal through. Even if I'm not in the office, I know somebody's going to pick this up and they're incentivized to do it. The IN trim is making this improvable. We learned in the military very quickly that if we didn't improve how we were operating, our enemy would do it for us. And in sales, our customers are not our enemy, but boy, apathy, big enemy. And it's really
No,
easy for a
definitely.
prospect to become apathetic, as you know, if they don't hear from us, if we don't engage them, if we're not providing value. So if I'm executing this system across a couple of quarters, maybe as my people leave or come in and out, going on vacations, attending to family matters, what am I going to do to improve the way that I'm prepping for success, even if someone is not at their sales desk?
So number one thing is really just having those playbooks and
Mm,
identifying what's happening with those playbooks. So, we have a list of about 20 different jobs at our organization that customers come to us for to complete. One of them, for example, is work order management and scheduling. And so when we're positioning a solution, there's different um facets to the work order management. You have the scheduling component, you have the invoicing component, all of that. And so, what we should be doing is as we go through successful sales, we should be documenting or improving those playbooks over time. So that way we can really hand those down. I think that's a big responsibility of us as sales leaders, but also as individual contributors. How do you create that repeatable um, plan and something that works and adapts, especially as your product is evolving as well and your processes are evolving.
I love the idea of going back and reviewing playbooks and making them implementable to more and more people in the organization. Just because someone doesn't have the role of salesperson, maybe they're on the customer service or delivery side, doesn't mean that you can't make a playbook so clear that they could pick up the phone and talk to somebody who may not even be a customer yet, but still have an intelligent conversation, provide some value, even just set a next step. I don't have the answer for that, Mr. and Miss Prospect, but the salesperson you've been dealing with does. They'll be back in the office next week. Let me get you on their calendar. If somebody did that for me in my organization, whoo, they'd be getting raises because that's a brilliant thing to do. So if I've got my trigger element, making it repeatable, making it improvable. Now the M in trim is the final element here, making this measurable. How am I going to measure the success of a system that is operating even if I'm not in the office? Do you recommend we measure just throughput on deals during an absence, pipeline velocity, contact and engagement? What do you think we should be measuring to see, does this system work better than the way I was doing things before?
Yeah, contact and engagement is
Okay.
probably the best approach. You want to just constantly keep things warm, whether you're there or not. I think the output of that, naturally, you're always going to have your results. What are your conversion rates? What are your lead engagement rates? What is the drop off rate? When you lose a sale, why was that opportunity lost? Is it because of a change in resources? Was it our voice change? Did we forget about why customers came in, what their primary job to be done was? And so, really, again, retroactively reviewing every single deal and understanding that more and more will increase it. But I think at the end of the day, I've alluded to this quite a bit. Having quotas that are shared across a team is absolutely critical because everyone has, for lack of a better word, skin in the game. And so if you fail to hit your team quota, there's something that's gone wrong, and it really forces a function of reflection and understanding. How do we get better, and how do we just not um just admit that, hey, it's this one off. It's how do we improve this because this occurred.
Mm, I love that. The idea of having team quotas and then looking at measuring how much did we pay out and how can we pay out even more? Any great
Absolutely.
sales leader is always interested in paying more to their salespeople because it means they're generating more deals. And if I've got a team quota that I can reward the team more, it means that they're doing more. And that's a brilliant thing for an organization. So you've been able to help us build something in 150 plus episodes we've never been able to address, which is how do we sell even if we're not in the office selling? And this is a great way to make it happen. So if people want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about your company, connect with you on LinkedIn, how do we get deeper into your world?
Yeah, so you can find out more information about Method, just going to method.me. For I think we have a specific checklist, an automation checklist that's available for listeners of today's podcast. So it's method.me/bulletproof selling. And you can sign up there. You can engage with a free trial and work with our team to learn more about what we do.
Amazing, sir. Well, if you are watching us on the live stream channel on YouTube, making sure you're hitting that subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere the podcast can be found, leave us a review and let other salespeople and their leaders know that you don't have to rely on hope anymore. Not with Bulletproof Selling, not with the wisdom and insights of great folks like Nelson that are working every day to help salespeople remove hope from how they sell and how they serve. Nelson, thanks so much for serving the sales community today. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.